We talk about grief a lot, but rarely do we talk about the pressure of being strong while you're grieving. The reason I'm sharing this is because a lot of you out there have dealt with grief, and grief comes in many forms. It comes from loss of parent, loss of child, loss of relationships, loss of old versions of yourself. And sometimes the hardest part isn't the grief itself. It's the pressure of handling it well, of composing yourself and showing the world, putting on your mask and showing the world that everything is fine. Everything is, I'm good. I can deal. I'm going to cry for a week and then I'm fine, right? It's that I'm going to move on quickly. I'm not going to burden the people around me. I'm not going to burden anyone. I'm just going to silently grieve and not show anyone. And healing doesn't work like that. Grief is messy. It's not linear. And it shows up 99.9% of the time. If you didn't process it at the moment, it will show up later in your life because it needs to be cleared. And that doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Hello, my beautiful warriors of love. My name is Sabrina, and today I'm sharing with a very personal story of mine. Some of you may know this story because I talk about it in sessions, but I feel like it's something that's been coming up for me in my field, and it's coming up as weakness, where I have deemed weakness as failure. And I realized that it went back to this moment. And I'm going to share to you how it came up for me, and we'll talk. Like I said, it doesn't have to be for me it was a loss of a parent. It doesn't have to be that for you. It could be whatever it is, because even sometimes our breakups, our relationships, it's like you're grieving because you've given so much energy into a relationship or whatever it may be, right? A loss of child is very high up there as well. So there's no hierarchy of which one is worse or better. There's whatever this resonates for you. Grief comes, like I said, in many forms. So I'm going to share my little personal story right now. When I was 12 years old, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. And 5 years later, when I was 17 years old, she passed away. In the interim of all these 5 years, we moved through many emotions. I have 2 sisters, an older and a younger one, and with my dad. And the rest of the extended family, because it's not only them, it's everyone else that is grieving at the same time. And, there was between surgeries, radiation, chemotherapy, morphine, codeine, all the things that you take. She also amputated her leg 1 year in, for no reason, by the way, because it still spread to her lungs and then to her brain, right? But anyways, we won't go there. My mother was in a lot of pain. But what happened was my parents, and I will never blame them for anything, but what happened at the moment was my parents wanted us to live a normal life, which I appreciate to this day. But in doing so, they hid the pain away from us. They hid the suffering. But as children, I'm young, but I'm not that young, and I could hear her crying in the bedroom at night. My sister and I would go and be like, what the hell, right? We'd look and crack inside and see that she was, feeling sick. She was not her best self. But in doing that, everything is hidden I get the whole, objectively, I can understand why they did that, and maybe I would do that as a parent. I don't know. Maybe not, but we'll see, right? But in doing that, we'll see. There won't be any seeing because I'm not going to be a parent. But the thing is, my parents did what they believed was the best to protect us. And I honor them for that. But it shaped something in me. and maybe and also in my sisters and everyone else. But this is the core family here I'm talking about. I'm talking about me. So what I learned over the years, without anyone ever saying it out loud, that pain should be hidden, that suffering should be endured quietly, and that vulnerability is weakness. And so I became strong and resilient and a survivor. And I truly believe that that was one of my strengths. These were my, I felt good about it. Something I could stand by. I could say, oh, wow, look. I pat myself on the back and say, look, you're not showing anything to anybody. You're not you're not walking around like a victim, you're not walking around, you're like hiding everything. It's all good. I really literally thought that I was like a fucking warrior at the time. I was like, wow, and feeling really good about it. But what happened is that without even me realizing, when I saw weakness in people, I was disgusted. I was like, ugh, what the hell is that? I criticized them. I judged them 100,000%. Right? Because I had this distortion within me that saw it as failure. Saw it as how are they showing their weakness? This is when I'm young, right? So I'm in my late teens at this point, in my 20s, where I'm developing, right? Because I'm becoming Sabrina, right? But in that Sabrina-ness, I am hiding everything. A big thing that occurred for me, if people saw me struggling, they might see me differently. So my whole life I wore like a mask. And I use sarcasm as my mask. And I use humor as my mask. And I use making fun of people as my mask. I did, for being vulnerable here and open. And I was deflecting my whole life. And I created this persona that was not real, because I, Sabrina, moved into very dark places throughout my life, where a lot of dark choices could have been made in those moments where I led down into black holes. And I chose, I always say that there was guardian angels or my mother there, pushing me out of those dark places. But now if I look back and I say, wow, those make sense, those dark places, because I wasn't facing myself. I wasn't facing the pain, right? I said, oh, everything is fine. Everything's fine. I literally did. I also blame God. So I put a lot of blame on him for taking away my mother. I blamed others for the pain I was feeling, because it's easier that way. And I didn't want to show people my weakness. I didn't want to show, there was no way in hell anyone was going to see me as vulnerable. And I know that in relationships I was like that. I was very hard on myself. I could recognize my weaknesses easily, but I had a hard time recognizing my strengths. And I put a lot of pressure on myself to be strong. Even though my sister was 1 year older and she took a lot of brunt of this, but we were just 1 year apart. So we worked together to take care of our sister that was 6 and 7 years younger than us, right? At the same time, though, we all dealt with it very differently. And I internalized everything. So did everyone, I think, all my sisters. Only because you get into this place where you're like, oh, now I got to take care of my dad because he's spiraling, right? And he's never, my mother was everything to me as a child. She did everything for me, right? She was my everything. She even joined in our crazy, and she was even when she had a fake leg, she did craziest shit with us, right? She did. I can go on and on with funny stories, but at the same time, we're talking about this now. So there's that part of you that wants to honor her presence in our lives. So you want to make everything happy. Let's think of all the happy memories, right? Let's push aside the self-hatred, because you hate yourself for your mother suffering. You can, oh, like she has to suffer and I'm all right. So, and there's, and all these masks are put up, all these facades come up, and it's very challenging. This is a little bit more challenging than I thought it was going to be, but it's fine. It's good that we bring this out here into the open, because it's with time a lot of self-awareness had to kick in, right? And it's only now, I got to say, that I realized that it was okay to be weak. That's kind of crazy if you think about it, right? Look, I mean, she died in 1986, so this is 40 years later. I realized that weakness is a strength, let's say. Weakness is not a strength or a weakness, it just is. And it's okay to feel the feels, and it's okay to be whatever you are. To feel whatever you are. And it's sometimes I don't think it was people pleasing. It was more hiding myself. It's more working with the ego at 100%, being a survivor. And loving that survivor mode. Maybe that's why I didn't like the show Survivor. Right? I don't know. But now I see things differently. I see strength as not pretending you're okay. The strength or the weakness is feeling the feels, processing the feels. So I don't want to label the strength and weakness as something good or bad either. I just want to see it as unprocessed feelings coming up 40 years later. But for me, it came up all the time, by the way. I just poof, back down. And I'm living proof here that, even as aware as I am, this moment that happened a month or 2 months ago was completely cleared one of my rooms. If you listen to one of my other videos, you'll know what I'm talking about. I could extinguish all of that room. I could burn it down to the ground, because at this moment I feel I can finally be me. I don't have to, and I don't have to be the strong one all the time. I don't have to be the one with all the answers all the time. And as I grew up, I was a crybaby. Everybody knew that. I cried at everything, right? And then at one point, I stopped crying in front of people and crying in my room, under the blankets, and that's where it gets worse, right? That's where you begin to pile up all of it inside you. But again, no regrets. I'm not going to go back and say, oh my God, I could have, should have, would have done it differently. And it's not. It's just where it is supposed to be right now. Because now I'm learning to clear things, and clearing is getting easier for me. A little easier, right? And like I've said in another video that is coming out too, I don't know when it's coming out, maybe it has already come out. Unprocessed emotions, unprocessed grief relocates itself, it finds other ways to show up in your life, in your bodies, in your relationships, in your friendships, even in your reactions, in your patterns. It just shows up, right? Any unprocessed emotion, whether it's grief or something else, is going to show up somewhere else, or like on your body in like as dis-ease, or as another freaking someone else that you're going to bring in someone else. You're going to not be able to speak up in that relationship, or you're going to you're going to see them as weak, and you're going to be like, wow, what the fuck am I doing in this? You're going to. So everything's a mirror, right? Everything is a freaking mirror. And I keep saying that over and over again, but it's so true. And if you have not processed your grief at 100%, and like I'm going to tell you this. When I was 25, I thought I processed my grief. And it kept coming up. People were like, maybe you haven't processed your grief. I'm like, 100% I processed my grief. I'm over it. Why? Because now I'm numb. I don't feel it anymore, right? I just not ignored it, because I felt it. I really felt my grief, and I do feel it. But now I don't that much anymore. Even I can go like a year or 2 years ago and say, oh, I'm like over my mother's death. I honor her death. It's not even that. I have my sister's death that compounded on it like 7 years ago. So am I over her? Well, who knows? Maybe that's something else I need to process as well. But I'm at a place in my life where I'm a little bit more self-aware. And I'm a little bit more understanding of their journeys, where I had to honor their journey. Before, I wasn't thinking about their journey, man. I was like, what the hell is going on with me? Then I would feel guilty. Oh my God, it's not about you, Sabrina. All these things come up when you're dealing with grief, because grief is like a chapter closing. It's an ending. And then you're like in this, it's crazy. Like when you think about everything that you go through, I don't know about you, but every emotion that I want to release, let's say, the first thing I think about is like, how are they're going to see me as weak? You're going to see me, you guys are going to judge me, right? Yeah, but if I'm thinking these things, that means I think these things too, right? Or you're going to, or I need to, how can I be a leader in the dark if I'm still processing this? Or, it's all these like things that show up. And I don't feel like that, obviously, if I'm saying this to you right now. I feel like it's like this whole acceptance, acknowledgement, acceptance, and release has changed my body, has changed my reactions and responses, has changed how I see myself, how I see others. It's like a big game changer. Every single thing. It's not only grief, everything in your life that you have buried. And it's not about blaming. Like I said, it's not about blaming my parents for protecting us from all of this. I refuse to do that, because it was good intentions of how they did it, but unfortunately through the thing we just didn't know how to process it, and it filtered itself out in different ways. Like my older sister, perhaps it filtered out in taking control of her life, being a helicopter mother, being a helicopter with her whole life, being in control of everything, because she wasn't able to be in control when my mother was sick. Right? So she took on that role. For me, it was weakness. I'm not weak, I'm strong, I can be a business owner, I can do everything, Like it was like whatever, while I'm crying in the corner. And my younger sister was a whole different other thing. Right? She dealt with she grew up in resenting her mother for leaving her. She was 11 years old. And whatever happened after that is whatever happened after that. It's not, we're not gonna like move into that, and decisions are made, and it's not always were they the best decisions that were made after the fact? Maybe not. But are we going to sit here and harp on about it and blame and shame people that made these decisions. Absolutely not. I'm not going to do that. And it's easy to blame. And I've done that in my life. I've blamed people for me feeling this way, where was just me blaming myself, right? I mean, I blame myself for my mother's death, which is normal. Everybody will do that. You'll blame yourself for the relationship breaking. You blame yourself even though you had no control over it, right? It's like, it's part of the process. It's part of the clearing. I mean, I blame myself for my sisters leaving the earth as well. And we'll continue, like, we go through all these stages of grief, right? Where it's anger, denial, whatever, blame, shame, all of it. And, it doesn't happen in a year, and it doesn't happen in a month. Unless you're, like, amazing that you can do that, like, kudos to you. But I thought I did it. I was like, I went through the 7 stages of grief. Poof! Until I realized, when a friend brought it up to me, like, a month ago, and she's like, why do you see weakness as bad? And I'm like, and I didn't realize that until this moment. We had to dig through this to, like, so thank you, Katerina, for showing that to me. So give yourself permission to feel the sadness, to feel, like, some people, when you're grieving, whatever you're grieving, even you're grieving an old version of yourself, that's a big thing too. When we're moving through this, we're like wanting to hold on, wanting to attach to the yesterday. And that's when, like, I've talked a lot about this with people, like, don't hold on to the past, which is true. Don't hold on to the past. But a lot of us have people in the past. I have a mother, I have a sister, I have my best friend aunt in the past. I have, like, a whole bunch of people in the past that have gone away, and I would like to hang on to the memories, and I would like to hang on. And it's fine to hang on to the memories. It's fine to do that. That's not what I mean by don't hold on to the past. I mean, don't hold on to the blame and the shame. And I could have, should have, would have done something different, and maybe they would have stayed alive if I did it, or maybe I would have stayed in this relationship if, like that. That's what I mean. Those are past energies, frequencies that we don't have to keep into this. But remembering a time that you went to the beach together and you had a lot of fun, whatever, and still in remembering a time that she was in bed, lying in bed, and her head was shaved and she was making fun and jokes still, and you're like, wow, it's so sad, but it's, like, funny. Awesome. Remembering a time when you felt the grief. I felt like shit. Obviously, I felt like that my whole world ended when my mother died. It did, right? But acknowledge that energy. Acknowledge that emotion. That's not holding, like, what that's a past thing that is fine, because you're acknowledging it. But you're not, like, bringing it in to, like, the way I did. I brought it in and I made it, like, like some of us make ourselves into martyrs and victims. And I would lie to tell you that I didn't do that at the very beginning. I enjoyed the attention. When I was, like, 17, 18, I was moving into CJEP, which is, like, college for you guys in the States. And I was like, I wasn't, Sabrina, like, relax. I was like, I wouldn't tell anyone my issues, but, sometimes it comes out, right? And they'd be like, oh, it's okay, and they would, like, pat me on the back, and I would feel good. I was like, oh, okay, I'm loved, because what part of me wasn't loved at that moment, right? What part of me felt, because I felt like my mother, who was everything for me, just left me there to die. Left me there alone on this earth, right? So there's that comes up, and to me, to admit this to you is, like, huge, because that to me is weakness. That's a part of vulnerable Sabrina that I don't like to show to the world. I am strong. I am, don't fuck with me. I am a rebel. I am a sassy chick, which I am a little sassy, but I'm an like, I am these things, but I'm also vulnerable. And I'm okay with that now. And I'm okay with expressing things that I'm okay with admitting that I'm wrong. I'm okay with that. I give myself permission to be whatever. Which is like, I give my permission to stop pretending to be something that I'm not. To stop lying to myself. That, oh, it was his fault for the relationship. Oh, it's never my fault. It's always their fault. Like that's how we do it. Like it's it's easier that way. But no, like you're two people in a relationship. Sorry. Like, and you chose to be with this person, so he or she was not evil or whatever, right? Like there was something there. And then all of a sudden, he's the one that, like, it's the recognition that both parties is not working, right? It's the recognition that the new version of self cannot live in the old version of self anymore. And that's what I mean by living in the past. It's a recognition that, my mother chose to leave the earth at that age, which was very young, 44 years old. She learned to leave that age. And I have to honor that journey. There was a big lessons in there for all of us. So it's a whole process, but it's coming face to face with the emotions that we've hidden and buried. And for me, it came in pain and suffering and weakness, right? In how everything was buried very deep until I could release it. And like I said, in releasing it, your life changes, and also your life choices change. And you also see things clearly, and you stop holding on to whatever it is that you're holding on to, resentment, anger, betrayal, all of this, and you don't give it that energy anymore. Like I just did a video right now, right before this, about plugging your energy into a source that is not there anymore. So why would I be plugging my energy into the past, where the past Sabrina, where I could just be plugging into this Sabrina now, and loving her for all the trials and tribulations that she's been through, and also honoring the people that in her life that brought her here as well. Because you could be grieving someone who's not dead in your life, who's still in your life. That could be a family member, a friend, or something, and you're just grieving that relationship. It's just not there anymore. So let's honor that. Honor the for her to be here, or for him to have been in your life, and now, like, move in truth. A lot of times, I'm probably opening up another subject, but in a lot of times we hold on to family because the human program told me that this is my family from birth to death. This is the way we need to be. That's it. You got to love your family, even if they're abusive, even if they hate you, even if, you're like, no, man, it doesn't work that way. Boundaries set, right? Like, set your boundaries, whether it's family, relationships, or whatever. It's your life, not everybody else's life. And again, I will always, and I'm going to say it again, your children are part of you. So of course, the children in you, that is your personal, how many, you could set boundaries with your children as well, but they are the branches of you. So separate. I'm talking about everybody else, including parents, including grandparents, including cousins, brothers, siblings, whatever. This is like, we don't owe anything to anyone just because you brought me into this earth. Because everyone should be, you should be free to process your emotions. You should be free to be able to express yourself. You should be free to be who you are, regardless of culture, family, values, anything. And that's the evolution. So thank you for listening to me, and thank you for being a safe space for me to share this very personal journey with you. And leave in the comments any of your journeys if you wish to share them, or you can personally message me if you'd like. And if there's anything that, like any masks that you discovered that fell, or any facades that dissolved as you move through this process of grief, I feel like sometimes I feel like social media is important in that way, to be able to it's an avenue to be able to express yourself in a safe space. And I always try to create a safe space for you guys. And even when I'm a little like unfiltered, and I still hope that this is a safe space for you. So I love you all, and I thank you again. And, again, support me however you can, and do check my other videos. And I'll see you in the next video.